Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 best-selling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Now, our guest today is Eileen Marder-Mirman. Eileen Marder-Mirman is a licensed mental health counselor and the author of the book, How I Think I Should Be Is BS. You can find out more about Eileen Marder-Mirman and her wonderful work at her website, eileenmardermirman.com. Welcome, Eileen Marder-Mirman.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So Eileen Marder-Mirman, lots of people talk about authenticity, being our true authentic self and living an authentic life. In your professional opinion, what does it mean to live an authentic life, and why is that important?
Well, what happens when we're living an authentic life is we feel ourselves. We feel like we're real. We feel like we're in the flow of life, even when things are difficult. So living authentic means that we're going to allow ourselves to be wherever we are, whether it's in a good place or in a difficult place or a happy place or a sad place. And then there's the flow of life, which helps us to elicit our creativity and elicit our intuitive ability to be exactly where we are and on the path of, I would say, right action, what we're supposed to be doing in this life. And I just think it's really important to work on ourselves so that we could wake up to the ways that we stop ourselves from being authentic. And that way we could be happier or feel more real. Another way of describing authenticity, really.
Okay. Now, in my 30 years experience in natural healing, and when I do medical intuitive readings, one of the things that I do is I look at what so-called roles that people are playing, ROLES.
Yes.
And the way that I like to explain it to my clients is if you went down to the theater and you tried out for the role of Blanche Dubois in Streetcar Named Desire, and you put on the costume and you said the words, maybe you'd be even a great Blanche Dubois, but that wouldn't be you. That would be you playing a role. And in my work as a medical intuitive healer, I look at the roles that people play, right? And sometimes these roles that we play, they even seem glamorous, like healer, author, visionary, princess, queen, king, and so on. They may be glamorous, but they're still not the real you. And what I find is that when we are projecting these roles out into the world, they're literally facades and they're defense mechanisms. How do you explain to your clients, what does it mean to be our true authentic self?
It's really about getting in touch with all of who we are. So it wouldn't be just being Blanche Dubois, being an actor. It wouldn't just be being a mother or a grandmother or being a healer or being a teacher or being the person that lives in this apartment. It would be all of who we are, which includes the things that we do. So for me, for example, a few weeks ago, I was observing a holiday and I got a text from somebody whose mother was having some extreme illness and just letting me know I authentically wanted to do a healing because my path is as a healer. And I just feel drawn to healing and supporting people and being a voice of reality as best as I can, just because it's who I am. So I didn't respond to her and say, I'm a healer and I don't work on whatever day it was. It was just from my heart. I wanted to give and spend some time doing some healing. And it's just what I do naturally. I mean, it's the best way I could describe it. So years ago, I was at the doctor's office. I go to a natural doctor in Manhattan. And somebody said to me, how did you become a healer? And, I thought for like half a minute and I said, all I could say is, it's who I was born to be. It's who I am. And that includes the title of healing teacher, healing supervisor, psychotherapist, mother, grandmother, wife, so on, friend, adventurer, researcher, all the different things that I do. So that's the best way I could describe being authentic. So the work that I do is to help people to feel comfortable with the parts of them that they accept and the parts of them that they don't accept. A lot of people think you're not supposed to feel sad. Well, there's a lot of reasons to feel sad sometimes. There's a lot of reasons to feel angry. When we allow ourselves to feel these emotions and these, whatever it is, that's any difficulties, then we become more real. When we don't allow ourselves to feel them, we tend to act out. And we might not think we're acting out, but the energy of whatever we're holding back or avoiding will be put out to the universe, to the other person, or to the people, or to the animal, or whoever it is that comes in contact with you.
Beautiful. Now, in my work as a medical intuitive healer, one of the things that I look at is your relationship with yourself, right? Because one of the things we know is that all the relationships that we have in our life are all based on our relationship with ourselves. So if I don't love who I really am, then it's going to be really hard for me to allow anyone else to love me or for me to have a healthy relationship with other people. So the 6 primary dramas that I find that keep people from having a true, authentic self relationship with and healthy relationship with themselves are poor me. I'll go over the big ones and then I'll go into it in detail. Poor me, aloof, interrogator, intimidator, child, and saboteur. So let me kind of drill down to those individually. So poor me is always talking about how busy and tired they are. They're always finding ways to feel sorry about yourself. You always feel like life or other people are doing you wrong. Okay. Now, when you're aloof, you're disconnected. You're not really sure how you feel. You're not really sure what you think. You're not grounded in your body, right? A lot of people who are aloof are extremely ungrounded. You may not have even fully accepted your incarnation in this body in this lifetime. Now, when you're the interrogator, when that's a relationship you have with yourself, you're always you're always self-questioning. Like, where were you on the night of Friday the 13th? Why haven't you figured this out yet? Why aren't you rich yet? Why aren't you happily married yet? Why are you still sick? So it's self-questioning, woulda, shoulda, coulda, and always finding fault. Now, intimidator, when that's a relationship that we have with ourselves, it's similar, but intimidator is basically you're bullying yourself. If you do anything, it has to be the hard way. Discipline is your middle name. You're super strict. You keep a grueling schedule. Everything has to be done the hard way. I like to joke that the largest cult in the world is difficult, right? Everything has to be difficult. when your primary relationship with yourself is your child, when you're in your child, you simply don't act your age, right? You prefer when other people are in charge. You can't think for yourself. Your feelings are easily hurt. You're acting like a child. And finally, when your primary relationship with yourself is saboteur, even when you start to get ahead in life, you find ways to mess it up. You get in your own way. If you start on a diet, you can't keep it going. You have the word sucker written in visible ink on your forehead, and you're comfortable in a chronic state of failure. So Eileen Marder-Mirman, author of How I Think I Should Be Is BS, in your opinion, what are some common barriers that prevent people from embracing their true authentic selves?
Well, I agree with you that there are all different ways that we stop ourselves from being who we are.
Yeah.
My belief is it's all about beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, being aloof and disconnected, there's probably something related to safety, feeling unsafe. There's something with the interrogator, self-questioning, that, we were taught to self-question. We were taught, and it's also a defense. It might not be something that our mother or father or teachers or guardians did to us, but it's something that protected us. So all these things that you mentioned, whether they're saboteur, the aloof, the interrogator, the intimidator, and whatever I left out, the inner child, when we're acting immature instead of showing up fully for ourselves, it's because these were defense mechanisms to protect ourselves from feeling unsafe, from the unknown. There's always the unknown. There's always uncertainty. There's always change. And these things are scary. And if we weren't given these fundamental ways of being with each thing as it is and accepting all of who we are, then we have serious problems. So, but we actually believe these things because it's what we were taught. It's what was in the culture. It's what's in the culture today that affects us. It affects us what was in the culture when our parents created us. It's in the culture of our ancestors. All of that was passed down. We tend to focus on the traumas. We tend to focus on the wounds, but there's something really that we need to have gratitude for. And that even with all the difficulties and all the suffering and all the wars and all the horror that have happened in our culture, in our history, our ancestors survived enough that we could be here in 2023. And there's something about resilience. So really finding our false beliefs, waking up to them, finding out how we stop ourselves, waking up to that, not getting rid of it, but integrating it so it could transform into more of our true self. Then we could walk the path of authenticity, which includes being imperfect. We're going to make mistakes. Sometimes we'll be the saboteur. Sometimes we might be aloof. Sometimes we might be the interrogator. Sometimes the intimidator. Sometimes we might be the little child that just wants to be taken care of. So to accept that happens sometimes and to wake up to how we're doing that, I think that's the healing. And it takes time, takes practice, and you can't do it alone. It takes support.
So I agree with you, Eileen Marder-Mirman, that our beliefs, a lot of times we think our beliefs begin with us, okay? And sometimes they do. Sometimes we have misperceptions, but they can also, our beliefs can begin with our families. They can begin with the culture that we grew up in, right?
Yeah.
And we can, they're even like worldwide beliefs, right?
Yes.
And so I remember working with a client, and And I was talking about where her beliefs started. And she said, it's like I swept that floor and swept that floor. And I'm like, these beliefs didn't begin with us. Or as you say, they can begin with our ancestors. Now, how can our lineage define who we are as individuals today?
Well, there's the traumatic part that I was talking about, right? And that causes all these defense mechanisms that you described. And there's also the strength of how they've gotten through, how they ended up going from Europe or other parts of the world to come over here and make a new home. So that's really important to include in the identity of who we are. They gave us certain things like love. Not everybody has this, but a lot of people come from cultures that focus on family and the love of family and taking care of family, which is, I actually believe, is the cause for so many wars, that this culture wants their family to be safe. This culture wants their family to be safe. And for whatever reasons, they're opposing one another and not realizing that we all want the same thing. There's a blockage here because there's no discussion. That's like a discussion for another time. So our lineage gives us connection to the past, and it also gives us connection to the future. And whether we have children or not, it gives us connection because within the family dynamic, there are people that are having children, and gives us connection to the future and what could be shared in the future that's healing and abundant and creative. Because in our world, there's going to be stuff going on because of I'll just name one, the environment. So we need to pass down the wisdom of the ancient people and the wisdom that we've acquired at this point to the younger people, so that they're going to make the difference.
Eileen Marder-Mirman, I love that you talk about lineage. In my work, one of the healings that I do is what's called a 7-generation healing. And that's important because if you think about it, 50% of your DNA comes from your mother and your father. 25% of your DNA comes from each of your 4 grandparents. And then 12.5% of your DNA comes from each of your great grandparents. And we can go back in time. And there's a wonderful Native American saying, which is, we are the result of the love of thousands.
Mm-hmm.
And when we call on our ancestors for healing and for wisdom and for advice, it's really incredibly profound. Every time I do that healing, with no exceptions, my client literally weeps with relief and joy and appreciation for this actual feeling that we are supported by the love of thousands.
It's
And
really true. Also, Chief Seattle spoke about that we're affected by the 7 generations before us, and we're going to affect the 7 generations after us.
for sure.
Yeah.
And with that, let's take a break and listen to a message from one of our commercial sponsors here at UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. We're listening to Eileen Marder-Mirman, and we're learning about how to show up as our true, authentic self. Eileen Marder-Mirman, your book is titled How I Think I Should Be is BS. Can you explain for our audience, what do you mean by that? How I think I should be is BS. What do you mean by that?
So we have certain beliefs about how we think we should be, how we think we should act, how we think we should be in relationship with other people, how we think we should even be in relationship with ourselves. So I wanted to share with people my healing memoir about how I suffered from certain things that I believed that were incorrect, and how I woke up to them, and how I transformed myself into being more and more and more of who I am. And, I always had a sense of who I am and who I was and who I am. And, but I had to allow myself to remember the truth of things. So the truth of my history, the truth about my ancestors, which we were just talking about, the truth about life as it is, and really wrestle with the difficulty that life's not so easy. You don't just get born and because you want and you pray for something, it's not necessarily what's going to happen. So there's always the unknown. So how do you live in relationship with the unknown? So one thing that I think is really important is to allow yourself to know that you're so much more than you even think that you are. You're the personal self, you're maybe the young self, you're the one that struggles, from time to time. You're and you're so much more spiritual than you even know, because I truly believe that everyone and everything is interconnected with the source of creation. And really having that revelation about that and feeling it fully in my body and my soul and my heart made a difference, because then I knew I truly am not alone. That doesn't mean that at times I don't feel alone and experience suffering. And then I allow that to be present. And then I wake up to my gratitude about where I am in my life, how I am, and know that I'm so much more than whatever the difficulty is that got me down.
So, your book, How I Think I Should Be is BS. How, in your opinion, how does who we are differ from who we think we should be?
Well, there's all kinds of shoulds, right? So the culture says a woman should be like this, a wife should be like this, a mother should be like that, a daughter-in-law, a sister-in-law, a sister should be like this. So we have to wake up to what those false beliefs are, what those false shoulds are, see how we're acting, see how we're saying, okay, like we're following suit and we're being a certain way that doesn't feel right. If it feels right, then it's organically who you are and it's okay. But if it doesn't feel right, you need to find another way of being yourself without creating chaos. So that's pretty much what I attend to. And, I developed all different ways of dealing with this. I woke up to the importance of remembering my history. I woke up to knowing that I'm more than what my history is. I woke up to love, that love isn't just, a cozy feeling. It's, I believe, the feeling that keeps us all connected and all together. I woke up to the importance of prayer. Sometimes, reading out of a sacred text, and sometimes something coming from my heart. I woke up to the importance of ritual, these kinds of things that helped me to be more of my authentic self. Even if people thought I was a little bit weird, I'm not going to like everybody, not everybody's going to like me. So, okay.
So,
Learning to accept that. Sorry.
Eileen Marder-Mirman, how do we go from shoulding ourselves, like I should be this, I should do that
Right.
on ourselves, shoulding on ourselves, to more freedom?
Again, waking up to how you're shoulding. How do I do that? How did I do that today? Should I look a certain way? Should I wear certain jewelry? And it's like I could fall into that, or I could say, what do I feel like wearing today that will help me feel more of myself? Right. So I wore a pair of blue jeans and a pretty little shirt that goes with it. So that's just a silly little example, but we have all these moments throughout the day. Okay, I'm going to be on a podcast. How should I act, instead of how about if I'm just myself, which is how I'm being. And if I was acting, I'd probably feel more aloof as opposed to connected to myself and to Catherine. So just waking up throughout the day, how am I not being real? And it's usually something that you'll feel in your body, like something doesn't feel right. What happened today? What didn't I do that would have been more authentic and made me feel more comfortable?
Okay, interesting. And with that, let's take another break and listen to a message from one of our commercial sponsors here at UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. And we're listening to Eileen Marder-Mirman, the author of How I Think I Should Be Is BS. Eileen Marder-Mirman, you are a licensed mental health counselor, and we're talking today about how to show up as our true, authentic selves. As you know, a lot of times when we experienced obstacles in our lives, we feel like the obstacle itself is bigger than we are. In your professional opinion, how can we break down obstacles so that they're easier or more manageable to work on and heal from?
So first of all, we have to get support. We can't just get self-help books. Like, I'd love you to read my book. I think it's, a good book and can really be helpful. There are great books out there, but we need a person that is further along than us that can support us, and or groups that can support us. It really, really, really makes a difference. So I think it's about going slow, talking about the difficulty, feeling the difficulty, not causing additional trauma around the difficulty, being kind to yourself, nourishing yourself around whatever the difficulty is, and knowing it's just going to take time. It took time to get us to this point, and it's going to take time to unwind whatever the difficulty is. I think really self-care makes a difference. Connecting with others makes the difference. Not watching too much of the news really makes a difference. I chose not to watch the news this morning. So, I just spoke with a couple of people and I meditated. That made a difference. I'll watch the news later.
Yeah. One of the things that I talk about with my clients, because most of my clients are highly intelligent, extremely successful people, very self-actualized. But no matter how smart we are, how much we know, how much we are experienced, there's something called the Johari window. So what is your Johari window? The Johari window is what you can't see about yourself. So the ultimate example of this, I remember one time going to the bathroom and I came out and then I had a piece of toilet paper tacked to my shoe. And somebody's like, oh, look, you know, we all have that, right? So there's, you know, there's parts of our lives that we know about ourselves, like you know about what happened to you when you were 4 years old, and somebody else might not know about that. But everybody has a Johari window, and that is why what you can't see about yourself, and especially for self-actualized people, I feel like that's where all the juice is. Because if I know it, and I know it's there, then I can deal with it. If I realize, oh, I've got toilet paper tacked to my shoe, I can take it off and not look like an idiot, right?
Yep.
Right?
So true.
So, Eileen Marder-Mirman, how do the emotions that we feel about ourselves impact the relationships we have with others?
Well, if we really spend a lot of time self-judging ourselves and not transforming that into more kindness, that negative energy will be between us and others. So there's literally a resonance between us and others. There's a field. They literally call it an energy field, even if you're not in person. So Catherine and I could feel each other's energy, even though we're not in person and we're on the computers, far away from each other. So whatever we're not willing to take a look at is going to affect us, and it's going to affect everybody that we come in contact with. Regarding the Johari window, we have to be committed to our awakening and our healing to be able to look at the places that we were afraid to look at or that we don't want to know about ourselves. And the truth is, it's good. It's good to realize I could be like this. I could be like that. I do this when that. This person felt this when that. And then have a conversation and not scold yourself like I shouldn't be like that, because then we're dealing with a problem of thinking that we have to be perfect. We have to deal with those shoulds all the time. I should be this way. I should be this way. I should look this way. I should sound this way. I should have known better. I shoulda. And the truth is, even if you knew, sometimes there's nothing you could do about it. So, as they say in the 12-step recovery program, one day at a time, and just allow yourself, even if you wake up to something that you didn't want to see about yourself, okay, it's not so bad. So transform that difficulty that you're having with, oh, you know, I'm not always the kindest person. I'm not always the smartest person. I'm not always the most organized person, you know, whatever our flaws are. And allow ourselves to say, it's really okay. I'm imperfect. It's really okay. I'm a human being. I mean, I want to be friends with people that are real and more human and not riding on their high horse all the time.
Now, Carl Jung talked about our shadow. So what is our shadow? Our shadow is the unintegrated aspect of ourselves. So years ago, I wrote an article called How to Keep Your Shadow from Ruining Your Life. And it was great because I was out taking a walk in nature one day and I had my iPhone and I got this great photograph of my shadow. And there she was, you know, and our shadows can actually be pretty big. You know, especially if we keep pushing things under the rug and refuse to look at, you know, what's really bothering us. What do I really think? What do I really feel? And when we keep repressing and suppressing what I really think, what I really feel, who I really am, then our shadow gets bigger and bigger, and your shadow really can ruin your life. right?
So, absolutely. Absolutely, because the more you repress, the more you hide from yourself the truth, the more, like I said, it's in the energy field, and the more you're going to act out. And you're going to get less and less conscious. You know, healing and awakening is all about consciousness. So we want to wake up to consciousness more and more all the time through doing self-inquiry, through prayer, through meditation, through connecting with others of like minds, through allowing yourself to have difficulty with people in your family and not having to run away unless there's a real reason to cut somebody out. That's a different story. But often it's not that story. We have to be willing to tussle about and feel uncomfortable. And if we don't work with our shadow, we're not really healing. If we're just all, oh, everything's wonderful, I love everybody, that's not real. Then
No,
we're doing this thing instead.
now, Eileen Marder-Mirman, your book is called How I Think I Should Be Is BS. How do we awaken to the programming that's really running our lives? Because it's the inner operating system. Like you talk about our beliefs. The beliefs are on the mental level, right? Our mental programming that runs our lives. How can we awaken to what that programming really is?
You have to commit to yourself that you're willing to see it. You have to take time and be aware of what might surprise you about how you're acting or feeling that day. You don't have to be on top of yourself 24/7, but it's nice to review where you've been, let's say, a couple of times a week, and how you've been. So it's one commitment, it's prayer, asking for guidance from your higher self, your wiser self, your more loving self, your more compassionate self. Connecting with others that are like-minded really, really, really makes a difference, and it makes you feel safer. Working on your trauma, working on your issues of safety, knowing that you can't control others, finding that out, realizing that there's really no control as much as we might want it and like it and so on. Those are the first things that come to my mind.
Now, I feel called to share with our audience, there's a little technique from energy healing that everyone can use to clear their shadow. Now, big picture, you're never going to get rid of our shadow, right? I had a client who her goal in life was to get rid of her shadow in this lifetime. And I almost wanted to say, well, good luck with that. Let me know how that works out for you, right? But it is true that as we do more inner work, we can integrate our shadow and we can make peace with our shadow. The way I like to put it is you just don't want your shadow ruining your life, right? So I don't want the unintegrated aspects of my ego running my life. I want my soul to run my life, right? I want my higher self to guide me to all that is part of my path, all for my highest good. So this really simple little energy healing technique, and I will take off my glasses and I'm going to demonstrate it and explain it to our audio listeners. So basically there's a soft spot on your left temple. If you go to the end of your left eyebrow, and there you'll find a soft spot. If you simply draw a circle in that area, and it doesn't matter which direction you draw the circle, and you put an X through it, that is an energy healing technique that sets your shadow aside. It's like, okay, go over and sit in the corner. I don't want to hear from you for a moment. I want to communicate with your higher self. And when I'm doing healing work in person with clients, I clear their shadow first, because I don't want to sit there and battle with somebody's ego. I want to talk to somebody's soul. And when I do my medical intuitive readings, I set my intention to listen to your soul. All right. Because everybody's ego is pretty much the same. I want it to be easy. I want to be rich and famous, and life is good all the time, and everybody likes me, and I like everybody. And that may be wonderful and good, but that may actually not be your path. Now, Eileen Marder-Mirman, we've been talking about how to show up as our true, authentic self. What are some ways, in your opinion, that we can practice staying real, open, and honest?
Well, we have to realize when we're not being real. I mean, that's the first step. And there's a feeling in the body when you, if you know you've been deceitful, you know it. If you're being phony, it feels, you feel split from yourself. So to really wake up to how you're doing it is a first step. And it's not that you're going to get rid of it. You want to transform it into the person that you were born to be. In Buddhism, they talk about, I want to be my original face before my parents were born. So that's really what we're aiming for, is waking up to what we're doing, how we're doing it, not necessarily why we're doing it. We're doing it because we're imperfect human beings. And the sooner we accept that, the easier life can get most of the time.
Yeah. And I would say, if a huge cause of anxiety, a huge, literally source of anxiety, is when you're trying to be or show up as somebody that you're really not, right? And so not being your authentic self, a symptom of that can be anxiety. Another clue that you're not showing up as your true authentic self is exhaustion, because it's exhausting to try and pretend to be somebody that you're really not, right?
Yeah, it's true. I mean, one of the things that happens as you go through the healing process and awakening process is there are times when you get really tired, but that's a good sign. It's a good sign because you're working with the ways that you tensed yourself and you shoulded on yourself to be a certain way. And it's like a big relief. So there's literally a release in the musculature in the body. And there's a rearrangement of what happens in your body, mind, and spirit, not just your mind, not just your heart.
Yes. Also, I would say, as a medical intuitive healer, that a lot of depression is people, as you would say, shoulding yourself to death. I should be this and I should be that, and that's not who I am, and therefore I'm depressed. So a lot of depression as people not showing up as their true authentic self, rather than, this is who I really am, this is what I really think, this is what I really feel, and this is how I actually really want to live my life.
It's also when we don't allow ourselves to feel helpless, because if we allow ourselves, and there's a lot of reasons why we should feel helpless in this life, just turn on the news. So if we allow ourselves to feel, I am helpless, I don't have control here, and allow yourself to experience all that that brings up, something will transform in us, and it shifts our energy. So the depression, if it's constantly, there's nothing I could do about this, I'm helpless, I'm hopeless, how could I, who am I to make a difference? If you really allow yourself to know that you're so much more than those beliefs, and that you're feeling helpless and hopeless, and say, oh, I'm just feeling this because it's a very difficult situation. Oh, and then bringing your gratitude. Oh, okay, I'm breathing right now. I'm alive right now. I have hope right now. There's a lot of possibility right now, even though I'm not feeling it. That could help you. And then, of course, if you still feel down all the time, then you must get some help from a naturopath, from a doctor, from a psychotherapist, from a healer, and from friends, and not stay in the dark and keep yourself closeted and alone.
So, Eileen Marder-Mirman, how can showing up as our true authentic selves improve our relationships?
Well, because we're talking from the heart, we're acting from the heart. And I think the other person experiences that you're coming from realness, you're coming from kindness, you're coming from compassion, and not manipulation, and not trying to control somebody and judge somebody. It doesn't mean that sometimes we're not going to want to control. It doesn't mean sometimes we're not going to feel judgmental. But just accept that sometimes those are human qualities that show up, and I think by just being real, speaking from your heart, not blaming others for all your issues, taking responsibility, that's a biggie. If you could take responsibility, especially in an intimate relationship, if you could take responsibility for your part of things and the other person could take responsibility for their part of things, it makes a difference. I work with a lot of people who, if they take I also say that you're the more conscious one. So like you're more responsible in many ways. If the other person can't wake up and refuses to, at least if you take responsibility to yourself, you don't have to say, oh, I wish I was more this, I was more that. If you take responsibility for yourself and how you might be acting and how you might be acting out, and take care of yourself, nourish yourself, do good things for yourself. It makes a difference.
So, Eileen Marder-Mirman, author of How I Think I Should Be Is BS, any final thoughts for our audience?
That's a good question. I'm looking at the subtitle of my book is From Hiddenness to Open-Hearted. So if you feel like you have to hide today, allow yourself to hide today. Tomorrow, go out. Just allow yourself to be where you are and know that if you do that, there's going to be change, because nothing stays the same. There's always change. It's actually part of the laws of physics. There's always change. Not that I'm a physics major, but I know a little bit about quantum physics and how there's always change. And also spirituality, we talk a lot about how things change. So allow yourself to be hidden, allow yourself to be depressed or anxious, take care of yourself, stay in your pajamas all day, call in sick, and go out tomorrow, even if you're not feeling 100% good. Because it might take months with some difficulties that are going on in your life to get through them. So you have to really self-care.
You've
I
been
guess
listening.
that's,
You've
go
been
ahead.
listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me and my work at catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how to heal yourself naturally. Our guest today has been licensed mental health counselor Eileen Marder-Mirman. Her book is How I Think I Should Be Is BS, and you can find out more about her and her wonderful work at eileenmardermirman.com. And remember, when you show up as your true, authentic self, natural healing occurs. Thanks so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.